Hi, I removed the CV axles from my early 944 to replace the boots and re-grease the bearings. In this video, I will clean, disassemble, and rebuild the CV axles. Welcome to 944 Restore. These axles are pretty caked in dirt and grime, so the first thing I wanted to do is clean them up a little bit. I put them in a bucket and then let them soak in some gasoline for about 10 minutes. Now that we have the axle cleaned up a bit, it's disassembly time. The first step is to mark the outside of the joint. This helps when it comes time to reassemble. Next, using a hammer and a drift, we're going to knock the boot off of the CV joint. I believe these axles have been rebuilt before, and this lock ring is not OEM. I had a really difficult time getting it off. I had to use a combination of snap ring pliers and 2 screwdrivers. With the lock ring removed, you can now take the joint off of the axle. To do this, I used a hammer and a drift. After the joint is removed, you'll be left with a washer that needs to come off as well. Note the orientation of this washer because it is concave. Disassembling the joint takes a little finesse. You have to kind of move the inner piece either forwards or backwards and then rotate the cage. Eventually you'll get to a point where you can just twist the cage and the 2 pieces will drop right out, and then you can knock out the ball bearings. With everything disassembled, it's time to wipe off all of that old grease. Here are all the joint components oriented to face outwards. For the large outer piece, there should be a groove around the outside, which faces outward. For the inner piece, there should be a stamp with a number on it. that faces outward. And for the cage, there should be a flat side and a beveled side. The flat side faces outward. A few of my joints were assembled incorrectly, so definitely check them against the markings. It's time for reassembly. The first step is to put the joint back together. Here are all the components laid out for reassembly. I've got the replacement boots, 2 joints, and an axle. The first step is to apply some grease to the boot so it can slide onto the axle. Next I'm going to reinstall the washer. Unfortunately the washer that came in the kit was too big, so I had to reuse the existing one. I am now going to regrease the joint, cut along the dotted line, and fill in the gaps where the ball bearings are. This needs to be done on both sides of the joint. With that joint greased up, it's time to slide it back onto the axle. It might take some convincing, so I used that drift and hammer again and tapped lightly. These lock rings are terrible. I couldn't even use my snap ring pliers. I had to buy this special tool just to get it back on here. I had some grease left over, so I squeezed out the remaining grease in the side that faces the boot. I then lined up the holes between the joint and the boot and then just hammered it back on. The final step is to secure a zip tie to the end of the boot. And after that, I'm going to flip it around and do the same thing to the other side. And that's it. CV axles have been rebuilt. If you found this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button, and thanks for watching.